After a year of endless campaigning, the moment that could change the Democratic race forever is coming. It's called Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday is the day that 14 states and one territory vote in the Democratic primary. Before Super Tuesday, 155 delegates will have been allocated from Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. The states and territory that will vote on Super Tuesday are Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and American Samoa. 1,357 delegates are at stake. When everyone wakes up on Wednesday morning, 38% of all the total pledged delegates will have been allocated. Democratic candidate wins the nomination if they secure 1,991 pledged delegates, which is a majority of all the pledged delegates, by the time they get to the convention in Milwaukee. So you go to the convention, and if a candidate has 1991 delegates, that's a majority, they get the nomination. If not, then you go to a second ballot. And on the second ballot at the convention, basically any delegate can vote for whoever they want. And at that point, every candidate has delegate counting operations, whip operations, political operations, and there is sort of mayhem on the floor of the convention and deals being cut. And basically, you keep voting until one candidate secures a majority of delegates. And you're basically convincing these delegates on the floor of the convention to vote for your candidate. It's not great. The two biggest delegate prizes on Super Tuesday are California, which will award 415 delegates, and Texas, which will award 228 delegates. The other probably big states that have a lot of delegates that will be on Super Tuesday are North Carolina, Virginia, and Massachusetts, which have around 100. Here's how the delegate allocation works in each state. As a candidate, you need to get at least 15% of the vote to win any delegates at all. The winner of the entire state, the popular vote in the state, they give statewide delegates based on that. They also award delegates based on congressional district within the state. So there's two ways to win delegates: winning the popular vote in the state and winning a specific congressional district within that state. But in both cases, you need to be over 15% to be eligible for any delegates at all. It's pretty complicated. It's possible that after Super Tuesday, one candidate has a lead with pledged delegates that is very difficult for another candidate to overcome. So here's an example. Because of his lead in California, Bernie Sanders could have a significant pledged delegate lead at the end of Super Tuesday, based purely on his big lead in California. So let's say, and this is possible but not definite at all, Bernie Sanders leaves Super Tuesday with a pledged delegate lead over the next candidate of 400 pledged delegates. This would mean he wins California by around what the polls say he's winning right now. Maybe he ekes out a win in Texas. Maybe he wins North Carolina and Virginia, some combination of that. So if Bernie has a 400 pledged delegate lead out of Super Tuesday, and then let's say all the other candidates drop out except one, and it's Bernie versus someone else, that other candidate would have to win every other contest on the map by a margin of 60 to 40% to catch up with Bernie's pledged delegate lead. Now, this doesn't mean that Bernie clinches the majority that he needs to win the nomination, but it would mean that headed into the convention in Milwaukee, Bernie would have a pledged delegate lead. If other candidates don't drop out after Super Tuesday, and it's Bernie and a bunch of candidates, it makes it even less likely that one of those candidates will get a pledged delegate lead over Bernie Sanders, because they will all keep splitting up the vote. And what happens in that scenario is, other candidates continue to get delegates here and there, but because there's no one who can beat Bernie by these margins of 60 to 40%, 20 points, 30 points, because there's too many other candidates, no one can catch him in the pledged delegate lead. So the other scenarios here are, say the polling is much closer. Say Joe Biden wins South Carolina by a lot, and that gives him a lot of momentum heading into Super Tuesday. And now Bernie Sanders wins California still, but he doesn't win by quite as much. And now Joe Biden wins Texas. And now Mike Bloomberg wins something else. And now Elizabeth Warren wins Massachusetts, and Amy Klobuchar wins Minnesota. Then you have a much tighter race. And then going into the contests in March, April, May, and June, Now, other candidates either drop out or candidates can start beating Bernie by 55-45 or 50-45 or margins like that. And then you have a much closer race headed into Milwaukee. Bottom line, anything can happen on Tuesday. If you're registered to vote, do not worry about the predictions. Go to the polls. Vote for who you believe in. And watch the Super Tuesday results come in with us at youtube.com/crookedmedia.